final panelist is Associate Professor Dr. Zarya Seizovic. Associate Professor Dr. Zarya Seizovic is coming from the Faculty of Political Science here at the Sarajevo University. He holds PhD in international law, and he completed his PhD at the Faculty of Law here at the University of Sarajevo. He teaches at the Faculty of Political Science, Sarajevo University, and he teaches courses dealing with the international public law, international humanitarian law, and he teaches the course related to political system of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Associate Professor Dr. Zarya Seizovic extensively published on the Dayton Peace Agreement itself, both in Bosnian and English language. So his topic of the discussion, his presentation will be on Annex 4 of the Dayton Peace Agreement and how this Annex 4 prepares safe and secure framework for discrimination among the people in the country. So, Professor, please.
Hello, it's my pleasure, both professional and academic, to be here. Honorable Rector, dear colleagues and dear students who are the future of the country and of the region and of the world. I'm really and honestly deeply honored to be here to present my views on a couple of very important issues tackling human rights in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I put together a little presentation in PowerPoint because they say that a picture or a slide worth 1,000 words, so it's going to be easier for you to follow. I may not more agree with esteemed colleague Cikotić saying that the Dayton Peace Accord is unchangeable and it cannot be changed, unfortunately, because it's a peace agreement, it's an international treaty that is not to be changed ever. There is only one piece of that agreement that can be changed because it envisages the mechanisms, internal ones, for the changes, and that is the Constitution of Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'll try to show you how the country's human rights system and the citizenship should not look like. So if someone wants institutional discrimination in his country, he can copy-paste Bosnian constitution and do it for the national minorities or some other categories of the citizens. Unfortunately, I know that the Dayton Peace Accords have been brokered through the Saline Charybdis, and it was very difficult to come up with the comprehensive document. And there are, of course, some weaknesses and shortcomings that showed up later on. However, the human rights system, despite its ceremonial achievements like having ombudsman and human rights chamber, actually attributed not to substantive and substantial human rights protection following the European standards and the global standards, but it's actually a country of discrimination. Citizens' rights, international human rights law actually points out the autonomy of human being in relation to a state and the state power, which may interfere or intrude the private individual sphere to the extent that is required by the day-to-day life in certain community, not more. So my right stops where your right begins. Political rights, or the so-called participation rights, are rights of an individual to participate or to participate in the management or ruling of the state and the social community. It's a right to elect and to be elected, a right to access to public service under the same equal circumstances or conditions. So you might not be aware of the situation that some Bosnian citizens that are born in Sarajevo or born throughout the Bosnian territory are not entitled to run the presidential elections or not entitled to run the elections for the House of Peoples of the state parliament, which is a discrimination, of course. And this is the institutional discrimination because it's been introduced by the country's constitution. Political decision-making means political participation. It is actually taking part in the political decision-making process at different levels of political organization within a certain social community, i.e. state. Political system. For this opportunity, we can define it in a very simplified manner as an administrative territorial political organization of a state or state of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Here we go. Preamble of the Bosnian Constitution, which is the most important part of the Constitution because it consists of declarations that actually channel the entire text of the Constitution. Quote, recalling the basic principles agreed in Geneva on September 8, 1995, and in New York on September 26, 1995, in red. Bosniaks, Croats, and Serbs as a constituent peoples, along with others and citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina, hereby determine that the Constitution of Bosnia and Herzegovina shall look as follows, or shall read as follows. Introduction to State of Affairs. Human rights protection as provided for in the General Framework Agreement for Peace in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is the entire title of the Dayton Peace Accords, the official one, is actually discriminatory. Annex 4 to GFAP proclaims equality of all the Bosnian citizens, including these constituent peoples, stating that it secures the equality. Of course, it contains the non-discrimination clause in Article 2, saying that no one shall be discriminated in the country on the basis of race, religion, skin color, etc., etc. What does it mean, institutional discrimination? The Venice Commission, or Commission Democracy Through a Law, expressed its opinion on constituent peoples vis-à-vis individual and collective rights as following. There is a clear constitutional obligation not to violate individual rights in a discriminatory manner, which obviously follow from Article 2, 3, and 4 of the Constitution of Bosnia and Herzegovina. ECHR, which is European Convention on Human Rights, secures individual rather than collective rights, but in Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's set up vice versa. So we do secure rights of groups, actually. In very simplified manner, one can say that they are citizens in Bosnia and Herzegovina of a first-class citizens, second-class citizens, and then even third-class citizens. So the first one, with the blue blood, I guess, would be the constituent peoples, i.e. Serbs, Croats, and Bosniaks. The second-class citizens would be the rest of the citizens, and the third-class citizens, this is a category that I invented, are the ones that are coming from mixed marriages. They are not Jewish, they are not Roma population, they are not constituent, they don't belong to anyone. And there is a fourth piece of Bosnian population. Those are constituent by their parents or by virtue of their birth, but they don't want to exercise their right to belong to any of the Bosnian nations. There is a mechanism to protect the vital national interest. In the Western political and legal theory and practice, as you know, the national interest is interest of a state. So the national interest of Bosnia would be not to declare war to the United States, I guess. In Bosnia, there is a particular meaning of national interest, which is equalized with the ethnic interest of national or ethnic groups, i.e. constituent peoples. So, what does it mean, vital national interests? It usually involves to be adequately represented in legislative, executive, and judicial bodies, to have equal rights in the decision-making process. Then issues related to education, cultural or religion, identity and tradition, language, national symbols and flags, cultural heritage, etc. Individuals in Bosnia are protected exclusively as members of an ethnic group, or they have reinforced by the constitution their constitutional position and guarantees as of to be protected as a member of the group. As I said, and you can see it in the slide, this protection doesn't cover the others that are not declared themselves as a constituent peoples. There is a then decision of the Constitutional Court of Bosnia and Herzegovina wanting to cure the unbearable situation, and it was titled Historical Decision, that actually denoted significant step forward in recognizing the same constitutional position of all constituent peoples in every part of territory of the state. What happens actually? The Serbs have been discriminated against in the federation, while the Croats and the Bosniaks or Muslims have been discriminated against in Republika Srpska. So this historical decision actually spelled out that the constituent peoples are constituent throughout the territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina, but implicitly, which was not expressly spelled out, is that the non-constituent by this historical decision became non-constituent throughout the territory of the country. This concept of constituent peoples is a bizarre one, and you can find probably some concepts like autochthonous people in the United States, like Indians in the States, or Albanian minority in Kosovo before the Yugoslavian war. And then you have national minorities, for instance, Hungarian and Italian minority in Slovenia. But the bottom line is that the citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina are divided into two categories at least, and this is the unbearable lightness of constitutional being for those that are not constituent. And then eventually, I've been researching this for, I don't know, probably 20 years, and then I got a stamp from the European Court of Human Rights from Strasbourg saying that there is an institutional discrimination happening in Bosnia and Herzegovina. In the famous case Sejdić and Finci versus Bosnia and Herzegovina, European Court of Human Rights has declared that the Bosnian constitution is discriminatory against those that are not first-class citizens. Unfortunately, no step forward whatsoever had been taken over almost 6 years to harmonize the constitution with the decision of the European Court on Human Rights. And conclusion that fit exactly into 15 minutes. First, there is no doubt that the current legal solution, as contained in the Bosnian constitution, is a legal foundation to a discrimination. Second, amendments are to be adopted to ensure better constitutional position for those not belonging to the three constituent peoples, and to bring to an end the current discrimination based on collective identity that goes on for 20 years. And eventually, the state constitution should guarantee equal treatment of all Bosnian citizens based on their individual rights, free from discrimination on any ground, including ethnic affiliation. Preamble of the Bosnian to-be adopted constitution should read as follows. Recalling the basic principles and agreed in Geneva and New York, we, citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina, hereby determine that the Constitution of Bosnia and Herzegovina shall read as follows. This would be actually everything that I prepared for this opportunity. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Zarija. Basically, Zarija he talked about the Annex 4 of the Dayton Peace Agreement, which is at the same time constitution of the country itself, and he elaborated on the discrimination, in fact on the constitutional discrimination that exists in this Annex 4 of the Constitution of Bosnia and Herzegovina, basically that those who don't belong to the constituent peoples, Bosniaks, Croats and Serbs, are not able to run for the post of the collective presidency, are not able to be represented in the upper house of the parliamentary assembly, in the House of Peoples. According to him, the Annex 4 of the Dayton Peace Agreement is in fact the only annex that might be changed, since it is the peace agreement. And finally, according to him, he said that Professor Zaria, he provided the preamble to be. In fact, he provided to us what kind of preamble should exist or must exist in the Bosnian Constitution for the sake of deleting or for the sake of avoiding this discrimination that exists in the Bosnian Constitution. So by this one, we finalized. We finished the first part of our panel of our session. Now we are going to take a break, let's say for 15-20 minutes, and after that you can come here, as I said in the beginning. Here there are piece of papers. You can write the questions. If you have any questions, you write the question, if possible, with nice handwriting, and you at the bottom of the paper, please write the name of the person whom you are addressing your question. So thank you very much. Thank you for coming back. So I can see that most of the questions are addressed to Professor Selma Sikotić. Here in front of me, I have five of them. Four of them are Professor Selma. So the first one that I received, why the city of Dayton was chosen for negotiations?
Please, give me 2 minutes.
What do you think about the future of the Balkan region? What do you think about the future of the Balkan region? Can we expect another war in the coming 15 or 20 years? And is it possible to compare peace negotiations in Dayton and the one which in Vienna for Syrian conflict? And do you want the last and the fourth one? Yeah. The fourth one is related. Can Annex Dayton? Is it possible to change the Annex 4 of the Dayton Peace Agreement in a way that will bring the changes to the cantonal structure of Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina? And the guy who is asking the question gives example of municipality of Vareš and Nola would like to leave Zeničko-Dobojski canton and join Sarajevo canton. Is it possible to have large citizen petitions? Had large citizen petitions, but nothing has been done so far. The questions addressed to Professor Seth, and the one was the name Republika Srpska discarded in the Dayton.
Next question to anybody.
Okay.
First one is to Selma.
Okay. Shall we give now time for Selma to
Hopefully all those who ask questions are still in the room, because I see almost as many people as the number of questions we have. The town of Dayton was selected simply because it was not far away from the capital and yet far enough from the crowds and centers of gravities and influence of the United States and world politics at the time. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base has got a long and dry history of US aviation, but has got great lodging facilities, sports facilities, press, communication and other capacities, and enough room to accommodate all those delegations, provide isolation and privacy for each of them, and that's why it was selected as an appropriate place where to take these important negotiations away from the crowds of the US and world politics. I don't know who asked the question, maybe if there are some additional elements that... When we discuss the Balkans region future, we might argue that the Balkan is a synonym for conflicts, for clashes, for fights, for blood and casualties, but hopefully the Balkan has learned its historic lesson in recent history. I'm hopeful that the fuel of the war has been exhausted, that in the near future we may not and cannot expect the renewal of the hostilities, conflicts and fightings. And I believe that if we understand and if we reach a common agreement, we, small states, small peoples living in this part of the world, we can change our position from being periphery of Europe into becoming a gateway and chance for Europe. What I want to suggest is that the Balkan Peninsula is linking Occident with Orient, linking Europe with Asia, linking Central Mediterranean region with Central European region, linking Adriatic region with Black Sea region. Many communication roads and movement of people, goods, values, ideas goes over Balkans. And since we now live the century of Pacific with the increased role of Indian Ocean, basically Asia is now the center of the world gravity. Euro-Asian trends are gaining in importance, not Euro-Atlantic as used to be the case in the 20th century, and this provides a great chance to the Balkans. If peoples, countries and leaders of the Balkans understand this chance and have enough capacity and willingness to seize this opportunity, Balkan can change historically its position from being a burden into becoming a chance for Europe. And it's a great chance for the Balkans. Next question is related to the question whether we can link Dayton with Vienna negotiations about peace in Syria. Well, Dayton negotiations had been well prepared before the delegations reached Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I don't see on the horizon of Syria anything close to a political settlement. I would like to remind you that Dayton Accords were reached on the grounds of military results of the military campaigns on the battlegrounds, even though the war was not completed by clear-cut military victory, but it was obvious who and what kind of war outcome was expected, and we had already the contact group plan as a base for the peace, and that's why the willingness of all sides were there. When we discuss it, I would really like to let you all know that basically the principal logic of those who organize negotiations is to create a similar level or approximately similar level of acceptance or satisfaction of participants, of negotiators. The logic of US team was basically to have a roughly equal level of frustration, because it was impossible to discuss the satisfaction. Because for different reasons, all negotiating parties were frustrated. Nobody could achieve even close to what the initial expectations had been. Um, Syria negotiations are far away from being completed and results of them accepted by all relevant sides. At the moment, at the current moment, it's very difficult to determine what or who are the relevant sides of negotiations, because for different reasons, every potential participant of the negotiations is discussable and troublesome for certain centers of influence, power, or potential witness in those negotiations. The fourth question had to do with Annex 4 of the Dayton Overall Agreement. This specific, I could tell you that Annex 4 has been changed a lot. There have happened many changes of the Annex. I could easily argue that defense reform is a serious constitutional reform of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and many other reforms. So we should realize, if we just say that we would integrate all those changes into the constitution, we would then have completely new basic legal document of the country. We have not implemented the Article 2 provision calling for the full implementation of European Convention of Human Rights and for the supremacy of international and European documents. If we had done so, we wouldn't have had the Sejdić, Finci, and many other cases related to human rights. Entities by Dayton Agreement were obliged to adjust their entity constitutions within the time framework of 3 months after the admission of the state constitution with the constitution of the country. It has not been done yet, 20 years after Dayton. So many people are criticizing Dayton without knowing the essential substance and content of all the documents. It has been implemented at the level between 10 and 20% at maximum. So we have not exhausted capacities of Dayton agreements and documents, and in some areas we have upgraded them significantly. When it comes to Vareš and Olovo position, it's not the matter of Annex 4, it's the jurisdiction of the Federation and the cantons. We have already got changes, and the procedure for those changes could be prescribed more precisely by my colleague Zarije, but I could easily direct to those people that they could easily apply to the Federation authorities for the mechanism of change of those borders. It is possible to be done. The position or the name of Republika Srpska was not discussed in Dayton. There were some attempts. I had a proposal to President Izetbegović that we integrate some mechanisms of reciprocity of rights of people in Sanjak area with rights of people in Arves area, but Holbrooke dismissed the proposal and cut off the possibility of such a linkage being integrated into the negotiations and final effects. Okay, thank you for the attention.
Okay, thank you, Professor Silva. One question we have for Professor Zarije, and it is related to the last answer, to the answer of Professor Silva and his question. If Annex 4 of the Dayton Peace Agreement can only be changed, why is it that we don't see more fundamental changes to change a fairly dysfunctional and fragmented state?
Yes, fortunately or unfortunately, the only annex that we can change or that can undergo amendment procedure is the Annex 4 or Bosnian Constitution for the sake, we should do it for the sake of the benefit or for the benefit of the country, but that it is a political will that does not, that is not in harmony within the political elites of the three constitutional nations in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So I'm probably one among the few that when talking in media shows and when I write, I say that we will never have a functional state. It might be taken as an insufficiency of patriotism, but I would say no. The real patriot points out the insufficiencies of the country, trying to provoke the driving force to change them. For the entire period, for the next decades probably, if we have the same settlement within the country, which is preserved by the Bosnian Constitution, we will never change it, because the Constitution is a legal basis for the political elites to remain in position. They can very easily agree among themselves how to disagree on the current agenda that is proposed. Allow me to give you a short example what the real politics is. At the beginning of the Balkan crisis or international armed conflict in Balkans area, especially in Bosnia, where the bloodshed was tremendous, I would say, incomparable to any other part of the Balkans area. The three political parties, the three national political parties, have knocked down the communist regime and saying that they are introducing democracy. Fine. Then in 15 months, due to political processes from Zagreb and Belgrade, we had a bloodshed. We had an aggression from both sides, and Bosnia tried to defend itself. These political elites of the three parties were actually leading their nations during the conflict. And they also formed, right after the war, the first coalition government of Bosnia and Herzegovina. These three parties, some of them are kind of disguised into the other titles, but they are actually the same. The country is politically divided into three constituent portions. These three parties have been forming the political system for the 2 decades after the Dayton Peace Accords entered into force. So what I'm saying is, they were together to knock down the communists. Then they had a quarrel, and they led their people through the war as a driving force, as a political power that led the people, the nation. And then right after the war, they formed the first post-Dayton coalition government, like nothing happened. And they were coalition partners. They actually kind of appreciated each other. And these 2 decades after the war is just kind of a vicious circle where these political parties are sometime, or some of them, opposition or position, but nothing changes. Let me conclude. To change the constitution in the way that required by the decision of the European Court of Human Rights, or to end the discrimination, or to turn Bosnia into a functional country, these political elites have to sit and to sign the verdict against themselves. They would never do it. Thank you.
Thank you. And yet we have one answer which is directed to Professor Selma, Professor Zari, and Professor Emir. And it says, will the results of the census, which was held 2 years ago in Bosnia, affect the Dayton? To what extent the results of the census currently affect the Dayton peace agreement? It is answers to three of you.
Well, I would simply argue that Dayton is over, and we now live with what we have got after Dayton. And I say this on purpose because the census results will help the statistics, but not that much the politics of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And when it comes to those specifics, it is very important to know a lot of details. I see one of the presenters today is opening the dilemma whether Bosnia is federation, confederation. He is not suggesting union, but I know many of Dayton negotiators would have been extremely pleased with the possibility to discuss option of having federation or confederation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. The state delegation of Bosnia would never accept even a discussion on this topic, because it would have been the confirmation of the war goals and ideologies that were behind the war plans, war politics. So just to give you the answer, Bosnia and Herzegovina is a simple, decentralized state. It's not a union, it's not a federation, it's not a confederation, period. And when it comes to the census results, many people who deal with the situation of Bosnia on the grounds of theory only, and in particular theory that is a kind of quasi-theory, which does not reflect the deep causes of certain developments, certain results of the negotiations and the war, show ignorance and make ridiculous and silly comments about Dayton. I give an offer to every of those people to have a hypothetical discussion with representatives of other side and see how would they change the constitution in some specifics when you had negotiators in Dayton who did not want to accept even the existence of Bosnia and Herzegovina as a state, and let alone its attributes and stuff. People who for years of war, completely ignored and neglected the existence of Bosnian state, Bosnian state institutions, Bosnian state army, Bosnian state police, or any other structure, institution, or body affiliated or associated with the name Bosnia and Herzegovina. That was the realm of Dayton negotiations. And when it comes to pre-wartime goals and the effects of Dayton negotiations, all sides came out frustrated. But most frustrated were those who expected the complete partition and end of existence of the state of Bosnia, because Bosnia as a state continued to exist. So if you want me to give you an answer to the question who was the winner of the war, I guess those were the defenders of Bosnia and Herzegovina, assuming that Serbs, Croats, and Bosniaks were, and others, and you might play with the definition of others in a number of varieties, but basically there is a significant percentage of those who do not identify themselves with the formulation of constituent peoples. And from that assumption, the percentages do not provide significant impact on the future political constitution, functionality, and nature of internal relations of Bosnia and Herzegovina. It was obvious. I heard it from US intelligence in '95 that in previous censuses in Bosnia and Herzegovina we had two levels of lies. At one, the number of Bosnian Muslims was purposefully reduced, whereas the number of Bosnian Christians, meaning Serbs and Croats, were purposefully increased because of the national key for the appointments, nominations, and breakdown of the authorities distribution within the state. But even that, I got the suggestion that probably roughly now Bosniaks make half of the state population. And it's our prediction that within decade or decade and a half, Bosniaks would make more than a half of the population. But it won't affect. Jeffrey Simon's predictions, Jeffrey Simon, by the way, is the best demographic expert at the global level, that by 2030, Bosniaks would probably make more than 70% of the population of Bosnia and Herzegovina. What would that change? Essentially nothing. The constitutional arrangements within Bosnia and Herzegovina would remain the same. And if you allow me one final sentence, when I was discussing those changes with President Izetbegovic during negotiations, I submitted the list of 27 proposed changes. So before I brought those changes to General Wesley Clark, I required authorization from President Izetbegovic as head of delegation. And he was going through the list, and basically he said, well, I principally agree with most of them. With some of them I'm not familiar with. I do not understand the technicality of military and defense solutions, so I would principally stay behind them. But there is this change number 9 that I do not like. In a way, it could be interpreted that it favorizes Bosniaks. We don't need it. We need a just solution. If by a miracle I am given a chance to wrote this agreement and its annexes on my own, I would not write it in a fashion to favorize Bosniaks and disfranchise Serbs and Croats. On the long run, it would do the strongest harm to the Bosniaks, because it could justify the allegations of the politics of Serbia and Croatia, and it could put Bosniaks in an unfavorable position, and they would face a kind of historic revenge again. We simply do not need it. We need a just solution. So go up to the level of fair and just solutions, nothing above and more of that. Thank you very much.
The same question is directed to Amir and
Okay, on the question of census, I have 2 points to share with you. Well, we all know that there was this constitutional court decision that 3 peoples in Bosnia are constituent in the whole territory. And that was very important and historical decision from the Constitutional Court of Bosnia. Based on that decision, there were constitutional changes in 2 entities. And as a result of those entity changes, we have Bosniaks as ministers in Republika Srpska and the Serbs as ministers in Federation government. And distribution of a number of Bosniak, Serbs and Croats ministers in both entities was based on census in 1991. So in this regard, the future census, I don't know, maybe there are some transitional agreements that this, maybe Professor will say more about this, will still be based on. But future census will effectively, probably, change this one. Another point that I would like to share, I believe the knowledge on numbers is important in the long run. Why is it so? Well, if we read the not official information from the last census, we will see that the number of Croats is around 400,000, close. and then if we take an election result of the leading Croatian party, let's say 120,000 votes, and then there is a question, legitimate question, how can a leading political party with 120,000 votes take all the position of Croatian constituency group? What about other 280 Croats who maybe were voting for others or who were not voting? In this regard, this census issue is an important for the political evolution of Bosnia, for the future, for the new political culture in Bosnia, where other parties, political parties from the left, who are not represented by three national groups, would like to, based on their results, also take some positions in the government. So in this regard, I believe the knowledge on numbers is important in the long run.
Okay, I was about to go there, not because I like to single me out and to be standing, but just to, the microphone was too far away. What was the question again? Can you just repeat it?
The result of the census of the last census affect the data.
Of the last census, we don't know the results. I think, pardon my language, I don't want to discriminate against anyone, but if a certain African country or even if some country that would not be developed, or the third world country, that do census by piece of paper and a ballpoint pen, they would publish results in a year or two. We are not publishing them, who knows for what the reasons are, for 5 years. And I think there is a politics to it always, because everything is politics in Bosnia. Many phenomena that arise on the horizon after the Dayton Peace Accord entered into force had affected the agreement actually on the ground. What I'm trying to say is that the defense, as colleague Cikotic said, defense reform was something that international community came with out of the blue, because the constitution didn't recognize Ministry of Defense at the state level. But there was a part called residual powers or something in the constitution that allows for establishing new additional institutions that would make state stronger. Then many security agencies have been invented just to secure a central government structure, such as SIPA, OSA, and some others that are helping the court and the prosecutor's office of Bosnia and Herzegovina to do their day-to-day duties. So the results of census, once we have them officially published and once we agree, because this is something also to be agreed upon, everyone would have objections, I'm sure, all these three national options and some other opposition leaders. But anyway, once we say, okay, this is the census, it may affect the Dayton, but actually, let's put the issue vice versa, because the demographic changes that happened prior to Dayton was signed actually were illegal and were based on territorial acquisitions that are not recognized by the international law and should not be ever recognized, but unfortunately they happen within the borders of one state. So we cannot say that Serbia took part of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which would be contrary to international law. So what let me wrap up the answer. The state is a living beast. It's not something that is carved in stone. So it has its own life, trying to be as flexible as possible and trying to not to disrespect the Dayton settlement. We'll see what is going on with the results of the census. But anyway, any future changes as to a political life, as to driving force to a healthy, functional state is subject to a multinational agreement within the political elites in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Without their consent, whatever results are of the census of anything in Bosnia would never help to come up with the efficient and willful changes, I'd say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With these answers, I would say that we can conclude today's sessions. First,
If participants have any, panelists have anything to add or comment also.
yes,
Outside.
yes,
I would have just one sentence.
I would also add one sentence.
Yeah.
This is my impression, and my dear colleague Cikotic would know probably and would feel, nobody knows it. Maybe the Wright-Patterson air base was chosen also to present the American strength. It was kind of military power, not the civilian settlement with these old spa and wellness centers. It was just to show the supremacy of the ultimate power on earth, right? Thank you.
I also mentioned during my presentation that the most successful phase in post-Dayton period was from 2000 to 2006. And I mentioned the reasons why it happened. And from my working experience at this university, because I deal with the Ministry of Security, with invitation letters, with residency permit, and I was also working in the embassy with consular affairs, I realized that this security aspect of the state of Bosnia is well organized. It is like any other European country. It is functioning perfectly. We are protecting ourselves. You know, it's well done. Whereas all other segments of the political society are, very weak. So I realized this was also the interest of the international community to help us organize our state accordingly. And this happened at this phase, as I said, from 2000 to 2006. So if there was a will from the international community to move forward beyond security issues, we would have a functioning state in other areas as well. There was no, unfortunately, interest from their side, and we are witnessing what we are witnessing. So this is what I wanted to add.
okay, thank you very much. Adel, would you like to say to panelists, if you have to say, to add something?
If they have questions, please tell them also, because the discussion is on.
I think that, yes, okay, thank you. I think without the decisions made or resolutions made by United Nations Security Council concerning the creation of the Tribunal for former Yugoslavia, we will never see the parties coming to Dayton. This is one of the reality. Second of the reality, we are talking about the Dayton now, but we still have, this is an institution, international institution that it's very important. The time, why we give another 5 years for international, for this tribunal, because we are afraid if the situation will be changing. Now there's many warrant arrests against many people, and then this is the reason. What is very important was that, as you know, the tribunal was created in 1993, 2 years before the Dayton. The Dayton could be not realized without to have this as a resolution. This is what is brought the Serbian to the negotiation. This is one of the elements. And then until today, if we stop or if we eliminated this as tribunal, then we will become back to the zero. And then we will be also afraid that Dayton, it will have no any effect. This is one of the essential thing that we continue to ask in United Nations to renew this is tribunal for another at least 15 years until Bosnia become a member of European Union.
in that time that maybe we will not need any more for district tribunal. But otherwise, until now, this is one of the security for the future of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Thank you.
Thanks. You.
Well, listening to the comments of my colleagues, I refresh my memory and I would like to share it with you. Dayton was not designed, was not even meant to be a kind of permanent legal structure of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Dayton was created with the assumption that it would serve as a temporal and transitional solution for many open issues, to stop the fightings, to stop the war, and give space to more rational, sober approach to many of practical issues of the state, of peoples living in Bosnia and in the region around. And today, we should live our lives with Dayton, but away from Dayton. We should not criticize Dayton. It's the approach of losers who are looking for excuses. We should take chances. We should assume new logical metrics and look for solutions. So we should move from being on the side of losers into being on the side of winners. Forget about excuses and look for solutions. And solutions are all around us. We have got so many potentials, so many young, bright and capable people, and I really believe in our young generation and in a much brighter future of this state.
Thank you, Professor Silva. Okay, with this, I would like to conclude today's panel. I would like to thank all our panelists, our four speakers. I would like to thank our audience for their patience, for coming here, for their patience, for asking the questions. I would like to thank our Balkan Studies Center and its director, its manager, Associate Professor Ali Çaksu. I hope this is not going to be the last. God willing, in the future we are going to organize something similar to this. So, once again, thank you very much.